sure if the GitHub does not have anything. There we go. Okay, so very exciting news from the OpenMatch project standpoint. We are planning on going 1.0 next week. Monday, if things go well, we'll see. Release takes a bit of time, so we'll see. The RC is already out and available to try, and there haven't been any changes yet between RC and release. So I'll just go over what's in the RC. So a few big changes are there is now a new field or a config value, which is assign delete timeout, which is how long after a ticket is assigned before it will automatically be cleaned up from OpenMatch. So the best practice advice is after your client gets the assignment, it should go back and tell, okay, I got it. You can clean me up from the matchmaking system. But that's not always going to happen because, client crashes, etc. This gives you a timeout of the default is 10 minutes, where after that, the match is long gone at this point anyways. So we'll just delete the assigned ticket. And it is configurable. The other big change is, we put this in beta, is the release all pending tickets. So as tickets are returned back from fetch matches, if they are marked as pending and they won't show up in queries. If, for example, your director crashes and it comes back up and it has no idea about what matches were pending, you can just call the function to say everything that was pending, go back to active. So you'll be found in new matches. This can also be used to delete all tickets in the development scenario. So you can call, for example, release all pending tickets and then delete all tickets if you've stopped inflow, and that will it'll delete everything within the system. Probably don't want to do that in production unless you have a specific reason for it, but for development, probably handy. There were also a few other small changes. The mesh function library now supports gRPC call options by request. And there's some Grafana metrics that I realized I should have got a picture of or a screenshot of or something. But there's some now. We did another pass on the metrics in Grafana. A lot of the work for this release was actually not in user visible changes, but it was in refactoring for improving test coverage. And so the test coverage is way better going into 1.0. Everything's tested end to end. And let me show you that. But there were a few breaking changes. I renamed a few of the configuration values because they kind of had moved. The things had changed and come and gone, and it didn't really make sense where things were anymore. So I just simplified it down to there's a few top-level configuration values for the more common things. The default evaluator now just uses the main config maps for Kubernetes. And there were a couple other enhancements you can see there. So any specific questions about the feature highlights or breaking changes or anything?
Cool.
No? Okay.
I don't think so. Hang on, I'm reading through the final breaking changes list.
Yes.
Moving the separate config maps. Now uses the main Okay, so the default evaluator is now part of the main OpenMatch config maps.
Oh, it's not part of the deployment, or like the Helm, whatever it's called, the Helm chart. But it's part of a subchart. You can configure it to turn it on, and it just looks at the default configs instead of having its own set of config maps, which caused a lot of duplication with the configuration.
Gotcha.
Given that like it was all the same, it was looking for all the same configuration values as far as like startup RPC server startup goes.
Sweet.
Cool. That's all I had. Exciting days. 1.0.
It's such a cool milestone. It really does indicate a significant amount of work, and signals a lot of really great things to people who would be potential users of OpenMatch, that they can rely on the API stability. So it's a cool milestone to cross. So congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for everybody's input and involvement and code changes and reviews and OSS governance, and I'm sure much more.
We are, in terms of 1.0, we are working towards getting the 1.0 integrated right now. And we are in the final, what's left to take this live in our ecosystem, and we're kind of running out of things to articulate. So we're on the verge. We wanted to target in the next 2 weeks. So that aligns still pretty well with 1.0ing. So we're excited to be the first folks on 1.0.
Cool.
And we still need to upload our logo and affiliation to it, to Mark's previous code that he sent me. Yeah. But I think that's all we have on our end. Starly, do you have anything to add in terms of 1.0?
I don't think so. You said most of it.
Cool.
Quick question. Since this is like the last meeting before 1.0, for the recording, what's the plan for like the feature requests post 1.0? Any process? Any what should folks be doing for feature requests or expecting as coming next? Thoughts, ideas, discussion?
Oh, we have someone. I hit admit. Hank.
Oh, there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for joining.
Hi. I'm joining from Turkey. I'm really new to your system. I'm just trying some implementation.
Awesome. Well, we are glad to have you join us. And if you have any questions or anything you want to chat about, let us know.
I don't have any questions. I just want to follow your meeting.
Awesome.
Cool. Unfortunately, you just missed the 1.0 feature breakdown. But I'll now address Star's question of what's the feature request process going forward. I think everything is with the GitHub issue, or maybe some Slack chat. But if you want to get it moving, get into a GitHub issue. This is definitely an open source project, and PRs are welcome. If it's a big thing, probably post an issue saying like, this is what I want to do, and kind of give some guidance there. But generally speaking, open source project, so post an issue, other people can like say, hey, I need to solve this problem too, or I need to solve it, but in a slightly different way. These are the issues that we need. And then as a community, figure out who's going to work on it and then move forward from there.
Cool.
So for example,
Anything professionally formal.
I have a 1.1 feature request I'm going to plug in either by Friday or by next Friday, since I have a sprint item to do it. Concept of either partitioning or multi-tenancy, I'll try and draft up a kind of requirements list and throw it up there so we can discuss it. Because I imagine that one's big enough that we wouldn't want just a PR, but we'd want like an open discussion and bring that into TSC.
Yeah.
Right.
So that'll be an example of a bigger one for post 1.0.
I look forward to it.
And just to reiterate my understanding, so it looks like now that we are 1.0, so there are going to be no breaking changes per se. So even if we really need any API changes, things will be more additive than breaking.
So that's a great question. 1 second, I have a thing to present.
Yeah, it might be good to reiterate your 1.0.
So I need to, like today, get it into the website so we can release the website for 1.0. But we have stability guarantees that everybody in the TSC has kind of agreed upon. Please look at them and chime in if they're not acceptable to you or if you have concerns. So the big things are the gRPC and protobuf layer will not have backwards incompatible breaking changes. It will have changes, but they won't be backwards incompatible. gRPC has a fairly understood like set of changes that won't break things. And additionally, like the general computational model is going to stay the same, which so you shouldn't have to change things release to release. But there are a few things that are important to note that aren't covered. Probably the first one I don't know why I put at the bottom is if the feature is marked alpha or beta, even if it's in gRPC, it's still liable for backwards incompatible changes. Just the way it's going to be, right? We want to be able to start working on a feature without believing it's 100% correct, and then put it out for release and have people who are really wanting it try it out, say yes or no, whether it was working for them or not. Additionally, like the exact computational behavior is not covered. Like if you query for tickets, the return order is not going to be deterministic from release to release. There might be changes in the backside that affect how the order things are returned. There's no order by clause in OpenMatch, so you can't expect that it's ordered in any given way.
Sounds like a feature request opportunity if someone really wanted it.
Yes, if someone really, like if there was a justification for it, like, sure, we can talk about it, but I haven't seen any reason yet. Additionally, like the exact steps to deploy it on Kubernetes is not, like that's always subject to change, I think. I can't think of a way that we could make it not subject to change, just because technology evolves in that way. And like, unless people are really going, oh, this is a problem, I think it's best to leave it that way. And then just like best practices, like we may figure out that, hey, we told people to do it this way, but you should really be doing it that way. As far as there's lots of discussions about, we suggested to do backfill one way with profiles. We're now suggesting you use tickets. There may be other things like that where, if you come and ask us, like the answers may change. But the implement, like if you implement something, it should still work. It just may not be the best way to do it. And then configuration is currently not covered. We may cover it in the future. But it should be fairly easy for you to change out your configuration, just update it to the new version. And I think this is fairly typical for most programs, is that you can't expect the configuration for your program to change or work every time you do an update, just because there might be new required configuration values and that kind of stuff. And then there's some other stuff with the metrics and the HTTP JSON layer, which haven't received enough attention for us to be really confident that they're stable at this point. If people really use them and really love them and give us feedback on them, that may change. But like, we just haven't heard enough about that to be confident in it yet.
Is it worth backing out the JSON support into a beta nomenclature?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to express that on, like, so with the gRPC stuff, like, we have documentation blocks on the calls that are beta. I guess the HTTP JSON is kind of in that beta state.
Okay. Yeah, we also don't use the HTTP JSON. We use the gRPC with protobuf.
It's the recommendation. Cool. That's all I had there.
Sweet. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
1.0 release notes, and then review of the 1.0 stabilization, as well as guidance for creating feature requests. So
Yes.
that feels like the toolbox that we effectively need for getting the word out.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go, I wanted to shamelessly plug that I filed a design ticket for a sample that I'm working on, and would really like to see, some conversation around it, especially those who are like really experienced in, matchmaking. I don't know if Scott wants to present it, but
Hold on.
yeah, it's I felt it as an issue.
Oh, you did update that. Okay.
Yes, updated it. So just to talk about it, it's just rank-based matchmaking is more common amongst a lot of games, so decided to do a sample that's based around that. What I wanted to do was pretty much create a sample that simulates as close to Glico as possible, but did not want to implement it because this is not going to be like a turnkey example. And just to give a brief overview, it's pretty much the tickets will have a standardized, a normalized distribution, like rank given to it, and the profiles will have a range with deviation so that so that tickets can overlap and fit multiple profiles. And I guess one of the main functionalities that I want to focus on in this particular example is handling collisions, which is also determining match quality. So making sure that the best player or the highest ranked player and the lowest ranked player are not outside of the deviation that we've set. So for example, for this sample, the deviation is plus and minus 0.75 added onto the skill level. So I didn't want the worst and the best player to go beyond that difference. So that's the best way to determine match quality. And I guess the conversation can go around creating specific profiles for different game modes, such as, like, for example, this might be for a free-for-all, but for a 2v2, obviously you want to have as close a average amongst the 4 players that will be split in 2 teams, for example. So looking forward to, hopefully starting a conversation around this, and, anybody who wants to contribute, I welcome you.
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, definitely we'll take a look.
I like the idea of sample match functions, and this seems like the obvious place to start. So we had a discussion a while ago about having an ecosystem repo, and we created it, and we did a little bit with it, but we haven't touched it in months. Do do we still like that idea of an ecosystem repo over putting a bunch of samples into the main repo? Or do we just want to go whatever? Are there strong opinions either way?
I would say that for specific samples, like specific functions that are very detailed, I probably would want to put those in like the ecosystem. But for more generalized things such as like skill-based versus mode-based, that might fit perfectly well in the main repo. But open to obviously opinions.
I have an opinion. I think maintaining a separate repo and the processes, etc., comes with its own overheads, right? Like if nothing, you'll at least have to kind of have some thought into how does the releases work, or if they don't, then at least document. So bottom line, I think we probably should give the first few components a chance to just live in the current repo. And if there starts becoming a critical mass of these, then there would be a tipping point at which it would make sense to just separate them out into its own repo, in my opinion.
Okay. Maybe we need to do some organization within the main repo.
Sure.
To cordon off core, OpenMath core, and then the default evaluator. But then we can probably do that.
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like there's the distinction here is sort of I think you said the defaults, right? If we wanted a default set of functions that were like configurable behavioral functions, where it's like customization, I guess more batteries included, and so you would like configure the function and with a profile in it, that would be enough. Those feel fundamentally like they belong in the repo, and everything else, I totally agree with your concept of coordinating them off either as samples or if they're tutorial specific in the tutorial folder or something like that. Just so it's really obvious hey, if you deploy this, you're going to expect some reasonable functionality with like a OneNode product or OneNode project. And then if you go into this folder, you're going to see more interesting things you're probably interested in if you're clicking on the samples folder.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe specifically for functions and evaluators. I feel like directors, I don't know, John, with your example, it probably requires a new director, right? Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion about the director.
Yeah. We do kind of already have a sample director for some definition of that, in the scale tests, but it's definitely not reusable. So
Gotcha.
I guess there is the example in the first match as well in the tutorials, but anyways.
Cool.
We actually, maybe, I don't know, Scott, you and I talked about this a little bit, whether it makes sense to sort of make some patterns around composability of directors. So I was talking with Scott a little while ago about maybe doing like a director shims, right? So as long as it implements the interface for what the next director expects, you could actually have information pass all the way through. So something that I wanted for a while is like being able to push like open match events from a director into like PubSub or into a messaging system. Being able to do that is like a shim that you could then like potentially line up several directories in a row to do those sort of things without interrupting the context of another. That might be an interesting pattern to start exploring.
Yeah, I've always felt that the director as a source for profile generation and then a like producer of match found events, sort of like that's kind of the life cycle. It's hard to describe it as doing more than that if you're building a nice simple director, and then your system external to that is the receiver of eventually just the receiver of match found events, and then it eventually assigns tickets or releases tickets, and that's it. Feels like a future opportunity to do some more with director for sure, since it's just loop. Matchmakers are just loops.
Or games are just loops.
Games are just loops.
Everything's are all loops, really.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we have any more stories on our end. You know, when we being Unity, when we have our 1.0 core running inside of our new matchmaking system, we'll send up a little celebratory firework at some point, probably in the next meeting or in Open Match Slack. That should be coming in the next couple weeks.
Awesome.
All right. Does anybody have anything else, or should we get back 30 minutes or so?
As the person on vacation, I want to give you back as much time as possible.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're all good, then it sounds like next time we chat will be post 1.0.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have to say is that turnips are 198 bells on my island if you want to visit.
Dude, I sold mine yesterday for like 3 something. Come on, get on my level.
And you didn't tell me. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm literally working now on April's Guide to Animal Crossing for people who don't want to go so far down the rabbit hole. So I'll be happy to send that to you and anyone else that doesn't want to spend quite as much time obsessing over a game like we're used to as game players, but like new people that don't usually play video games, like they're not used to this, and it's very scary for them sometimes. So
turnip prices are the real cause of stress nowadays.
there was literally an article yesterday where someone was like, I quit thinking about it and I feel so much better. And yeah, it's getting way out of control. Way out of control.
Still don't play this game. This doesn't sound fun. This just sounds like basically work in a Switch.
Okay.
It's Job Simulator, but it resembles life a little too closely. So it's not like, oh, like let's go build a zany water park. It's more like, hey, like imagine your pea patch outside. You can just double the work. You can also do it inside.
I don't understand why you don't see the appeal, Mark.
a lot of shade getting thrown around at the moment. All right, cool. Let's discuss Spot City.
If we do, I can also put in a plug for another fun game called Kind Words. It's on Steam. It's not really a game, but it's like real people that are writing letters, you know, to the ether, and then like you respond. So if you, you know, find yourself like just needing to chat with another person who's a complete stranger and like just put something good out into the universe, it has got to be one. It's like the only game I think on Steam that has like a almost 100% rating, and everyone's like, this is really wholesome. That doesn't really happen very often. But it's also got a really cool lo-fi, you know, hip beat soundtrack. So that's another part of the appeal as well. So if you're looking for some cool music to have in the background while working, you can check that out. Anyone else have a cool game they wanted to share?
I've been playing. Anyone plays AI Dungeon? It's a AI generated continuous generated text-based adventure in which you can type anything and it just continually creates a story for you based on like you can set up like sci-fi or cyberpunk or fantasy or stuff. I've been playing a fantasy game where I'm a wizard fighting against the Empire, at which point I think I've actually become the Empire. I tried to install democracy. Unfortunately, the village I had generated my raised from the dead army decided to vote me as their new leader, and now they're very happy because I threw them a feast. I may have also burned the Empire leader to death. That's fine. Don't worry about that.
A lot of empirical tendencies going on here, I feel.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna make revenge on all these people for the horrible things the Empire have done, and then they're like, now you have a huge army and you're taking over lands, and I'm like, huh. But it is actually
there's a lot to be said about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the tech is like disturbingly good. It's quite impressive what they can do with the AI tech.
And I've been reliving my childhood and playing Streets of Rage 4, so that was really fun.
Dude, that's good.
We really need to find a game we can all like play together,
John, we should.
other
we should
than
play Streets of
Animal
Rage together.
Crossing. We should
Oh, you
do
have
what?
Someone
yeah.
game using open match that we can all play. I suppose we could play Quick Flight, but
Give us a few weeks and we'll send one over.
I was gonna
Oh,
say, Scott, you
nice.
built one, didn't you? So
Yeah, we should play Streets of Rage together. I play a lot. I'm not necessarily good, but I do play a lot.
I'm decent. So.
If we don't have any community requests at the next meeting, we could play some Jackbox games for an hour and call it work.
Oh, I figured out how to stream Jackbox effectively. So, I
there you
can
go.
I can host.
There you go. All right. No one else has any cool game stuff they want to share. All right. Then we will call it and chat with everyone soon.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye. Be
Yeah.
safe.
Bye.